Ark Survival Ascended, a dinosaur game about survival, exploration, brutal encounters, and babies? A game that is so fun it's difficult to put down, and yet you constantly die, get jump scared, and sometimes even disconnect. Now, ascending at the alpha difficulty is becoming more and more common, so I really wanted to challenge myself and take things to the next level. In this series, we'll be taking on the island, Scorched Earth, and the center. But wait, this is no ordinary ascension challenge. That is just the beginning. We're also going to tame one of every creature currently in the game across the 3 maps. And lastly, we will be building a zoo of wild creatures. That's right, wild, because a tame zoo would just be far too easy. Now, we need to do all 3 of these things: ascend the maps, tame the creatures, and build the zoo, all by September 4th, the release of Aberration. Now, you may be wondering, is this even possible? And in order to find out, well, you'll need to stick around for the journey. And now, our journey begins. Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode in our Ark Survival Ascended adventure. I hope you are just as excited and scared about this adventure as I am. Now, knowing that I committed to doing so much and I only have 2 months worth of time to get this done, I really needed to not lollygag around and needed to get quite a bit done here on day 1. So I channeled my inner karate kid and I started punching trees until my knuckles turned red, and I started pulling out the grass until I couldn't feel my fingers, as I knew I was going to need myself a full set of cloth armor. Otherwise, these enormously large-sized pecs were going to get quite a bit cold at the nighttime here. And I made sure to grab a couple extra pieces of fiber, as we were probably going to have to do some extra cleanup, if you know what I mean, later on, because living off these berries tends to give you the Hershey squirts. And then I spotted the ugliest dog I had ever seen, and I figured since he's got a face that only a mother could love, and I was also alone and needed a friend, I was gonna shove some berries down his throat and make him my new best bud. Now, finding this Lystra was exciting, as I knew that his experience buff was gonna be pivotal in our progress in the early game with all the crafting that we needed to do. However, celebrations were cut short, as I was challenged by one of the locals. This here Dillo from the back corner of the beach decided he was gonna challenge me for the right to claim this Lystra as his own. So he was either gonna be my new best bud, or he was gonna turn into a steak dinner for this Dillo. So I put him down. And speaking of steak dinners, I was getting hungry, as all this combat had made me exhausted. And then I realized I didn't want this body to go to waste, so I chopped him up and put him in my back pocket. I don't quite know where. Probably right next to where all those berries just came out. And I decided I was going to eat him later on. Now I went back to my best bud, shoved a couple berries down his throat, and he truly was now my friend. So I thought it was only right that we named him Friend, as we had nobody else in the world at this point. And a quick detour from our story here. There's a small tip here for you. When you're passive taming a creature, you will know they're ready for the next feeding, because they will poop prior, which indicates they are ready to be fed yet again. And now that we had access to this experience buff early on, I thought it was only right that we try to focus on leveling up. So I took the information that I've actually learned from doing my leveling up guide in Ark, and I started to go through and break a bunch of rocks, as I had the intent to craft as many campfires as I could, and I was probably going to craft some cloth hats as well, to just see how much experience I could get here in the early game and start working towards some of those pivotal engrams. And then once I had enough materials, I placed down my first campfire and I grilled up the Dillo. Man, it was a tasty snack. But that wasn't going to be enough, so I actually skinned him and I used his hide to make me this really nice looking hat. And I figured this was now my domain, so I was going to use this hat to intimidate the locals. And that's exactly what I did. I stumbled upon a dodo, and I let him know that this was now my beach, and I owned it since I had taken it and freed it from the grasp of that evil Dillo. This is mine. And then I did what any justifiable person would do. As I was trying to lay claim to this land, the dodo was squawking about, so I killed him where he stood. There it was. This beautiful site here on the hill, a perfect place to call home, at least as we got started. So I trekked on up here and decided I was going to build a house. But I wasn't going to settle for some just basic small little 1x1 hut. I wanted an establishment. I wanted to show dominance and let this small little island of paradise know that I was here to conquer the Ark. But in order to make this house a reality, I was gonna need wood, so I chopped down every single tree that I could find on the island. Now, construction on our home was going great, but then I stumbled upon a lystro in our backyard, and I realized since I already had one, I didn't necessarily need a second, so I ended up killing him with the intent to turn him into a new place for me to lay down at night. But then I heard a strange noise. Even after the lystro had died and I had skinned him, I still continued to hear screams. And those screams were reminiscent of the lystro I had just killed. And then it dawned on me. I had left Friend all by himself in front of our house. I quickly returned home, and when I looked for Friend, there was no sight or trace of him whatsoever. However, I was quickly hit with something hot from behind. A dillo had attacked me. Thankfully, I had emerged victorious. However, I still could not find Friend. However, this weird little thing on my arm allows me to look at previous events that have taken place. And there it was. Friend had been killed by a dillo. The only thing that mattered to us in this world outside of dominance and ruling the Arks was Friend. And Friend was dead. And now I was alone and sad. Now, I wanted to build Friend a grave in his memory. However, at this point in time, I realized I didn't even know how to build a grave, nor was I strong enough, nor did I have the materials. And now, the night of the first Ark was upon us, and it was now more so than ever that I truly felt alone. Friend had died, and we had a house, but we had no one to share this life with. So, at one point in time, we were going to need to find ourselves a new friend. Someone much stronger and reliable, and who hopefully would not die. Now, as I stared out at the moon, pondering the events of the day, a white drop had spawned in front of me. So I went on over, hoping for something great, and it gave me all of the exact same materials I had just spent the entire day crafting to build this house. Thanks, Ark.
Tell me why. Tell me why.
Now it had been some time since I had ate, and I found myself a dodo, and I was just about to kill it for dinner. But then, the feeling of loneliness set in. I missed Friend, and I wanted a new friend, even if he was a weakly. So I proceeded to punch the dodo with the intent to knock it out and make him my new friend. Well, I guess he didn't want to be my friend, as he chose to go to the afterlife instead. So I took him back to the house, and I decided, since I was hungry, I needed to eat. So I was going to throw him on the fire and watch him cook up so I could have myself a nice little steak dinner. Here is to hoping the afterlife has better loot drops and fewer microtransactions. Now, after mourning the loss of what could have been a new friend, a new challenger had approached our island. That's right, our arch nemesis, the seagull, was here to lay claim. So I just threw one swift arrow up, and I took care of business. Okay, you and I both know these things are way harder to hit than what it actually seems like. And he ended up stealing something, and I have no idea, but I did manage to kill him after a couple of shots, and I decided to chop him up, as this was going to be some of the last pieces of hide that I would need to be able to finally craft myself a bed and officially call this place home. I made my way back to my thatch hut, crafted myself a bed, and officially claimed this as my home. Then I stared down at the fire, pondering life, wondering if every day on the Ark was going to have this many ups and downs, and I was thankful that I had not personally experienced any tragedies yet. However, we did lose a friend, and I was alone I hope the following days bring companionship. Feeling the warmth and the comfort that the fire brought, I thought this was a prime opportunity to rest. So I went down and laid my head on the bed, closed my eyes, and knew that tomorrow we had a big day ahead of us. Right as I was beginning to drift off into a dream, remembering and thinking of our friend, I saw this strange light outside. So I stepped out, curious as to what this could be, and what I saw was breathtaking. This place may be cruel, it may kill your friends, but my goodness, is it beautiful to look at. And after completely being in awe of the spectacle, I went back inside and called it a night. Now, when I walked outside on day 2, I was greeted by yet another visual spectacle. The sky there was lined with clouds, and the fogs in the air. You could see the obelisk and the loot drops across the sky. It truly was a sight to see. But I knew behind all that pretty stuff there was a whole bunch of danger, and it was day number 2, so let's get going. I was out scouting the area, wondering what it is that I should do next in this journey, and lo and behold, the very first thing I find is another dodo egg laying right there in front of my base. That means I'm having fried eggs and dodo for breakfast. But I was wondering if there's an egg here, and I had already killed all the dodos. That must mean there are more dodos elsewhere. Then, once I got tired of flexing my hunting skills, I went back to scavenging, and I knew I was going to need some wood as I planned to build a raft in the future. Alright, well at this point I had basically destroyed half the island's natural resources, and then I got distracted, because across the river I actually saw that there was a parasaur just hanging out all by himself, with not a predator in sight, and I saw this as a prime opportunity. So I made my way across the river, and I noticed that he had some dodo friends, so I just killed them for good measure. Then, when I walked up to the parasaur, I noticed that he was actually a pretty decent level. I certainly wanted to tame this guy. So I figured I would just bola him and then use trank arrows on him. The only problem is, as I just realized that I was not high enough level to use trank arrows. So I was going to need a different plan, and being a high level, there was no way that I was going to be able to knock this guy out with just one bola. But then I thought, what if I trapped him while he was bolaed? Similar to what I've done in some of my Ark taming videos where I show off some of the traps on raptors. We're going to apply the exact same concept. However, the only problem is this guy is kind of chunky, so we had to make do, and actually I was short one pillar, but no problem, he's kind of dumb, and he just walked forward and trapped himself. And then we proceeded to knock him out, called him Finny, and we had a new best bud. And the very first thing I did once I tamed Finny, other than make his saddle of course, was I went through and I destroyed every single berry bush in sight, because I was never going to have to pick narco berries again, at least hope not. So I got a stack of about 500, figured that'd be a good amount, get me about a 100 trank arrows if I have 100 spoiled meat, which I didn't, but I was trying to future-proof myself. As soon as I had done leveling up, I walked outside, and I was greeted by a pest. That's right, this playthrough was not full of a bunch of deaths, no, but I had all the thieves apparently near my base. I was attacked by a pego. He just straight up attacked my parasaur. I had never seen that before. They usually come after me and try and grab my stuff, but he went for my new buddy, and of course I took that personal. So you try and take out my new best bud? I'm sorry, but your baby has to go. And it turns out there was another one too. Another pego had crawled up onto the beach looking to try and make an easy steal. But I was not going to have it. No, I chased him out of here. And by chased, I mean I proceeded to shoot him in the face with arrows until he was no longer breathing. I then looked at the necessary requirements in order to craft the raft, and I realized that I still had plenty of trees around, so wood was not the issue, but hide was going to pose a problem, and killing those pegos had helped quite a bit, but I was still a bit short, so basically I proceeded to kill anything that I had found or came close to the base. That included a pteranodon. And it was at this point that I realized the only necessary material for the raft that I was missing was wood, so I channeled my inner Paul Bunyan, and I started causing deforestation on this island. And then finally, I had accomplished my goal, and we were going to be setting sail, but there was just 2 more things we needed to do. First, I had built a lot of stuff here, and I'm going to leave the house, but I felt I should probably take along the structure. So I went through and I proceeded to place down a campfire, some storage units, and my bed, as well as the mortar and pestle here on the raft. And there was one more thing I needed to do. So I walked back to the base after all of that, all by myself, to say my final farewell. Now it was still early, and I will never be able to repay the friendship that friend gave me early into this playthrough. But unfortunately, I am not a rich survivor, I am poor, and I don't have cementing paste for a grave. So he's gonna have to be okay with me making a sign and blowing up the text as large as possible, just so he knows we shall miss him. And with that, let's head on out. And with that final farewell, I loaded Finney up onto the raft, and we set sail. I was unsure of where this journey was going to take us, but I had a lot of plans and ambitions, and I needed to start digging deep to make progress towards those goals. And we will see where that journey takes us in the next episode. Alright, if you guys enjoyed the video, then please consider leaving a like and subscribing if you're not already.